If you're listening late at night, you might want to stay until the end. Please believe every word. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I worked as a contracted security guard for almost 10 years. I've patrolled empty hospitals, commercial buildings, even a chemical warehouse in the middle of nowhere. I always found those horror stories people make up about those places amusing. There was always an explanation, always, until I accepted the shift at Oakwood Elementary. The school had been closed for 4 months, something about structural issues that needed to be resolved before the next school year. But when I arrived there on the first night, I realized that nobody had touched anything. No scaffolding, no tools, no sign of construction, only silence. The school was located on the outskirts of a small town in Oregon, surrounded by tall pine trees and a dirt road that led 20 minutes to the main highway. 3 stories of red brick, large, dark windows, and that bell tower on top that you could see from afar, like a needle piercing the sky. My job was simple. Make rounds every 2 hours, check doors and windows, record any anomalies. Easy, boring, lonely. Exactly what I wanted after the divorce. The first round was peaceful. I walked through the corridors with my flashlight, listening to my own footsteps echoing on the old linoleum floor, the smell of mold mixed with chalk and disinfectant. The classroom still had desks stacked in the corner, blackboards half erased, children's drawings on the walls, crooked smiles, yellow suns, names written in shaky handwriting. Everything's normal, everything's dead. At 11 o'clock at night, I did the second round. I checked all the doors on the second floor. Everything was locked, except room 7. The door was open, not much, only about 15 centimeters. Enough for me to see the darkness inside moving with the air current. I knew I'd locked that door on the previous round. I was sure of it. But old buildings do that, right? Loose hinges, latches that don't work properly. I went in. I slammed the door shut. Test the doorknob. Firm. I went down to the control room in the basement and noted in the report, Room 7 door, check lock. I went back to the guardhouse at the entrance, drank my reheated coffee, and waited. And then, at 2:14 a.m., the bell rang. It wasn't loud. It wasn't the electric, metallic sound you'd expect from an automatic system. It was slow, heavy, muffled, as if someone were pulling the cord manually, with effort, high up in the tower. Dong, break, dong, break, dong. 3 times. My heart stopped. I literally felt it lock in my chest for 2 seconds before it started beating again, fast and uncontrollably. I dropped the mug. I picked up the flashlight. I left the guard post looking up at the tower. Everything is dark. Everything is still. But I had heard it. As clear as I'm hearing my own voice now. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe some animal had gotten in there. Maybe I was going crazy from all the silence. But deep down, I already knew. Something was wrong at that school, and I had just woken up. I stood there in front of the guardhouse, staring at the bell tower like an idiot. The icy October wind cut my face, but I barely felt it. My breath came out in white clouds, quick and uncontrolled. I needed to check. I descended to the basement through the side entrance of the building. The staircase was narrow, with a rusty metal handrail that creaked when you leaned against it. The walls were bare concrete, painted a hospital green that peeled in strips. The fluorescent light flickered every 3 seconds, creating that hypnotic and nauseating rhythm. Light, darkness, light, darkness. My footsteps echoed strangely down there, as if there was a delay, as if another person were coming down with me, a step behind. I stopped halfway up the stairs. Silence. I continued. The control room was at the end of an L-shaped corridor where they kept the old records, the deactivated boiler, and the school's electrical panel. The door was ajar. He always left it that way so he wouldn't be completely isolated if something happened. I went in. The dashboard was old, but digital. Small green lights indicated the active circuits, or rather, the ones that should to be active. Because officially, since the school closed, only the emergency lights and the alarm system were on. But there, on the registration screen, shining in phosphorescent blue letters, was Bell, Manual Activation, 2:14 a.m. I felt my stomach churn. Manual activation meant that someone had pulled the cord, up there, in the tower. But that was impossible, because the bell hadn't been connected to the system for months. The maintenance company itself had disconnected everything. I had seen the report. I looked at the circuit breaker panel on the wall next to me. All the breaker boxes were down. No power, no circuit. Nothing should be working. And yet, the record was there. Digital. Undeniable. I felt something creep up my spine. It wasn't fear yet. It was that feeling you get when you realize something is fundamentally wrong, but your brain is still trying to piece it all together. I left the basement faster than I should have. I almost tripped on the stairs. When I got outside, the cold air burned my lungs like a blessing. I looked at the tower. The only way to get there was via an external metal staircase fixed to the side of the building. Narrow, rusty, dangerous. No one had climbed it for years. But I needed to. The staircase groaned under my weight. Each step was a gamble. I climbed slowly, holding tightly to the handrail, trying not to look down. The wind howled between the steps, and I felt the whole structure sway slightly. When I reached the top, I found the tower door ajar. My heart raced again. I pushed the door open with my shoulder. It creaked like an open wound. Inside, hanging in the center of the small octagonal room, was the bell rope, and she was swaying, slightly, almost imperceptible, but swaying, as if someone had just let go. The air inside was freezing, colder than it should have been. I could see my breath escaping in thick jets, like smoke. I took 2 steps and touched the rope. It was damp. No, wet. Ice cold. I instinctively pulled my hand back and wiped it on my pants, but the sensation persisted. It was as if the moisture had clung to my skin. It hadn't rained for 3 days. I looked around. No open windows, no leaks, no explanation. I stood there for almost a minute, just watching that rope sway in the dark. And then I heard it. Down there. Distant. Steps. Boards. In the hallway on the 2nd floor. I ran down those stairs so fast I almost fell twice. When I hit the ground, I ran to the building's entrance and stopped. Everything was quiet again, but I knew someone, or something, was in there with me. And that bell had just rung. I should have left right then. He should have called the company, made up any excuse, and left. But something held me back. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the feeling that if I left now, I would never be able to look back without wondering what really happened. So I stayed. I went back into the building. I went up to the 2nd floor, flashlight in hand, walking slowly so as not to make a sound. I wanted to hear. I wanted to be sure I wasn't alone. But the hallway was empty, silent. The doors were all closed, exactly as I had left them, except for room 7, open again. I felt something tighten in my chest. I walked over, pushed the door open forcefully, and went inside. I shone my flashlight everywhere. Desks stacked, blackboard clean, drawings on the walls, nothing out of place. I closed the door. This time, I locked it from the outside with the padlock I found in the hallway. There, I murmured to myself. Now it won't open anymore. I went down to the 1st floor and headed to the cafeteria. I needed to calm down, sit down, breathe, think. But when I turned on the emergency lights in the cafeteria, I saw, as trays, they were stacked in the center of one of the tables. Not just any old way, it was a perfect stack, geometric, impossible. At least 20 plastic trays, one on top of the other, balanced at an angle that defied gravity, as if someone had been joking. It's as if a child had built a tower and run away before it fell. I had passed by there 2 hours earlier. The trays were stored in the cupboard. I backed away slowly, without taking my eyes off that pile. And then I heard the sound, tock, 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 coming from the indoor court, a bouncing ball. I walked to the double doors that led to the court. I opened them. The space was dark, illuminated only by the dim light coming through the tall windows. And there, in the center of the court, an orange basketball bounced by itself. Tock, 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 rhythmic, constant, as if someone were dribbling while standing still in the same place. I pointed the flashlight. The ball stopped. No R. For a fraction of a second, she was suspended 1/2 meter off the ground, as if someone had caught her, and then it fell. It rolled to the side of the court and stopped. My hand was shaking so much that the flashlight almost fell. I left. I slammed the door shut. I leaned against it, breathing rapidly, trying to find some logic in it, but there wasn't one. I went back to the guard post. I sat down. I looked at the clock. 1:47 a.m., 27 minutes to 2:14. I tried to distract myself. I turned on the portable radio. Just static. I picked up my cell phone. No signal. Of course. In that forgotten place, there was no coverage. I stood there, counting the minutes, feeling time drag on like an open wound. 2 or 10, 2 or 12, 2 or 13. I got up. I grabbed the flashlight. I went back down to the basement. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to see. I needed to confirm. I entered the control room. I stood in front of the panel, waiting. 2:14. The bell rang. Dong, and this time, I saw it. On the dashboard screen, the letters appeared in real time. Bell, manual activation, 2:14 a.m. But I was there, alone. The door was locked from the inside, and then I heard it. Steps, on the stairs, going down, slow, dragging, like old shoes scraping on concrete. I turned off the flashlight. I held my breath. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure whoever it was could hear it. The footsteps drew closer and closer, and they stopped. On the other side of the door, absolute silence. I counted in my mind. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 40 seconds. Nothing. And then, the footsteps returned, going up, slowly, scraping, fading away. I waited another 5 minutes before moving. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. I ran upstairs without looking back. And that's when I realized I wasn't alone at that school. I've never been there. I climbed those stairs as if my life depended on it. Maybe it did. I don't know. I only know that I needed to get out of that basement, out of that narrow corridor where the footsteps had stopped on the other side of the door. I reached the ground floor and went straight for the main exit. My hands were trembling. Cold sweat trickled down my back despite the cold. I pushed the door open, locked. Impossible. I had left it open. I always did. It was protocol. I tried again. I turned the doorknob forcefully. Nothing. I took the keys from my pocket and inserted them into the lock. The key wouldn't turn. It was as if someone had welded the mechanism shut from the inside. The key went in, but it locked completely. No, 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 I murmured, feeling panic rising in my throat. I ran to the side exit, locked too, then the back exit, near the kitchen, locked. All. I was imprisoned. I looked at the wall surrounding the school, 3 meters high, barbed wire on top. I'd tried jumping over walls like that before when I was younger, but now, at 35, with a bad knee and no momentum, I tried anyway. I ran. I jumped. I managed to grab the top of the wall, but the wire pierced my hand. I let go with a muffled scream, falling backward onto the ground. Blood trickled between my fingers. I lay there on the wet grass, staring at the starless black sky, and then all the emergency lights in the building flickered. At the same time, once, 2, 3, like a beating heart. I stood up slowly, wiping the blood from my pants. I looked at the school. It seemed alive, pulsating, waiting. I had no choice. I went back inside. I went up to the 2nd floor. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me already knew, had already given up on running away and just wanted to understand. I arrived in room 7. The padlock I had put on was on the floor, open, clean, as if it had never been locked. The door was wide open. I went in. Here you go. On the blackboard, written in white chalk, in shaky, irregular, childish letters, "You came too late." Below, a list of names, 15, maybe 20, written in columns. Some I recognized. There were plaques with those names in the hallways, former professors, students who had graduated decades ago. But at the end of the list, written in a different handwriting, firmer, more recent, was my name, my full name. I felt my legs go weak. The flashlight fell from my hand and rolled across the floor, creating dancing shadows on the walls. And then, at 2:14 a.m., the bell began to ring. But this time, he didn't stop. Dong, 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 dong. Continuous, fast, desperate. I covered my ears with my hands, but it was no use. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside my head, vibrating in my skull like a chainsaw. I fell to my knees. I closed my eyes. I screamed, but I couldn't hear my own voice. And when I opened my eyes, I was in the basement. Again. I didn't remember going down. I didn't remember anything, just being there, in the control room, with the door open behind me and the corridor plunged in darkness. The bell stopped ringing. Silence. The silence was so heavy it hurt my ears. I stood up slowly. I turned toward the hallway. Here you go. Silhouettes. Small. Stops. Dozens of them. Children. No. Shadows of children. Faceless outlines. No details. Just human forms. The size of elementary school students. Motionless. Lined up on the walls as if waiting for class to begin. My breath caught in my throat. One of them tilted her head. Slowly. Like a dog listening to a distant sound. Another one stepped forward. Then another one. And another one. They started to move. All at the same time. Without a sound. Without footsteps. Just gliding. Coming towards me. Run. I ran faster than I'd ever run in my life. I stumbled up the stairs, tearing my pants, bumping my shoulder against the wall. I reached the ground floor. The front door was open. Open. I went out. I passed through the gate. It was unlocked. I ran down the dirt road until I couldn't anymore. I collapsed on the shoulder, vomiting, crying, trembling. When the sun rose, I called the company. I quit my job. I didn't give any explanation. I never went back. But since then, every night at 2:14 a.m., I wake up. It doesn't matter where I am. And I hear it, far away, muffled, as if it were coming from beneath the earth. The bell. He's still playing. And I know that one day, I'll have to go back. Something happened to me, and to this day, I can't understand it. My name is Matthias. I know, it's a Brazilian name, but I was born here in the United States. My parents came from São Paulo in the 90s. I grew up in Ohio, got married young, and got divorced even earlier. And when everything fell apart, I needed money. Any money. That's how I ended up getting the job as a night janitor at Evergreen Elementary School. The school had been closed for 3 years. Structural problems, lack of students, I don't know. The building was going to be demolished in a few months, but until then, someone needed to keep the place safe. Hourly patrols, checking doors, noting anything strange. Easy, right? Wrong. The first night was a Tuesday in January. Snow piled against the windows, and the wind made that high-pitched sound that resembles a child crying in the distance. I arrived at 10 o'clock at night. The building was shrouded in shadows, with only a few emergency lights flickering in the hallways. The facilities manager handed me a heavy keychain, an old flashlight, and a walkie-talkie that looked like it was from the 80s. "If anything happens, call me," he said. But nothing ever happens. He left, and I was left alone. The silence was dense. You know when the air feels like it's pressing against your ears? That's how it was. I started my first round, footsteps echoing on the worn linoleum. Empty classrooms, stacked desks, whiteboards with half-erased marks, children's drawings still stuck to the walls, yellow suns, disproportionate trees, crooked smiles. Everything's normal, everything's dead. Until I passed through the control room. It was a cubicle in the basement, full of old monitors, exposed wires, and a rusty metal panel. An intercom system. One of those where you press a button and talk to the whole school. I'd never actually seen one of those working before, but he was connected. The little red light blinked slowly. On, off, on, off. I looked at the dashboard. No buttons pressed, no microphone activated. But the light remained on. That's when I heard it. Static, low, almost imperceptible, coming from the speakers scattered throughout the hallways. A constant hiss, like electronic breathing. I froze. I stood there, listening to that sound seep into my bones. And then, silence. The red light went out. I left that room without looking back. I ran up the stairs too fast. My heart was pounding. I forced myself to think rationally. Old system, interference, exposed wiring. It makes sense. But when I got to the main hallway, I felt it. Someone was watching me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Just the empty hallway stretching in the dim light. Doors closed. Windows covered in ice. But the feeling remained, as if invisible eyes were glued to the back of my neck. I finished my rounds. I went back to the caretaker's room. I sat down. I took a deep breath. "Everything will be all right," I whispered to myself. But deep down, I already knew. Something was awake at that school. And now, he knew I was there. I returned the following night. I know, it sounds silly, but I needed that money. And during the day, in the sunlight, everything seemed ridiculous. I'd just been scared by a faulty electrical system. Nothing more. At least that's what I kept repeating to myself. The second night began the same way. Snow falling, wind howling. I entered the building at 10 o'clock sharp, locked the door behind me, and began my patrol. This time, I avoided the control room in the basement. There was no reason to go down there, none. But at 11:30, I heard it again. Static, coming from the speakers. Low whispering, like someone breathing near an old microphone. I stopped in the middle of the second-floor hallway. My blood ran cold. "Old system," I muttered. "Just interference." The static increased, and then it stopped. Absolute silence. I ran to the janitor's room and turned on the security monitors. 8 cameras, Empty hallways, empty rooms, empty staircases. Nothing. Absolutely nothing moved in that building except me. I took a deep breath. I went back to my patrol, 12:15 a.m. I was in the ground floor hallway when the intercom rang. It wasn't static this time. It was a voice, childish, low-pitched, distorted like an LP played at the wrong speed. Matthias. I froze. My heart stopped. It literally stopped for a second. Matthias Carvalho. My full name. My full name. Nobody there knew my last name. I had only given my first name when I signed the contract. Nobody asked. Nobody requested identification. It was a temporary, informal, desperate job. But that voice knew. How? I whispered, my voice trembling. The voice on the intercom continued, slow, drawn out. Matthias Carvalho, are you alone? I felt my legs go weak. The voice was coming from everywhere at once, from the speakers in the ceiling, from the rooms around me, from the hallway in front of me, from the hallway behind me, surrounded. I ran. I ran to the control room in the basement. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the flashlight. I went in, slammed the door, and looked at the panel. The red light was flashing. Room 14, second floor. I checked the monitor for camera 4, the one that covered the second floor. Empty. Empty hallway. Door to room 14 is closed. No movement, but the voice was still coming from there. Matthias, can you hear us? I turned off the sound on the monitors. Temporary silence. My breathing was rapid, panting. Cold sweat trickled down the back of my neck despite the cold. I needed to see. I needed to confirm that there was no one there. I climbed the stairs slowly, flashlight in hand. Each step creaked. The wind outside battered against the windows like dull punches. When I reached the second floor, the hallway was shrouded in shadows. Room 14 was at the end. I walked. My footsteps echoed. My heart pounded. The door was ajar. I pushed with my fingertips. The room was empty. Desks stacked. Whiteboard clean. Window covered in ice. Nothing. But the intercom on the wall was on. The red light was flashing. And then I heard, very softly, almost inaudibly, "You shouldn't be here." I stepped back. I turned around. I ran back to the stairs, and when I looked at the monitors again, in the control room, the intercom audio was coming from 3 different locations at the same time. Room 14, Room 3, main corridor. But the cameras showed nothing, just empty. I stayed there until dawn, locked in the control room, praying that that voice wouldn't return. But deep down in my mind, one question kept repeating itself. How did she know my name? I should have left. I should have texted saying I was sick, or simply disappeared. But the truth is, a part of me needed to understand. I needed to know if I was going crazy or if there was something real in that place. On the 3rd night, I arrived prepared. Audio recorder in my pocket. Cell phone charged. Coffee maker full. I wasn't going to sleep. I wasn't going to hesitate. I was going to document everything. Before starting my rounds, I did something I hadn't done before. I researched the school. Sitting in the janitor's room, with the dim light of my laptop illuminating my face, I typed, "Evergreen Elementary School story." What I found took my breath away. A news story from 1987, local newspaper. 8-year-old child disappears during class. Search continues. Her name was Emma Rose Pritchard. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a smile on her front teeth. She had left the room to go to the bathroom during math class, and she never came back. The entire school was searched. Police, sniffer dogs, neighbors. Nothing. Emma Rose Pritchard disappeared, and it was never found. I closed the laptop slowly. My mouth was dry. The wind outside had stopped. Absolute silence. And then, the intercom rang. This time, it wasn't a voice. There were several. Children, whispering, overlapping, all at the same time. Matthias, can you hear? Should not. To hear. Us. I stood up so fast I knocked over the chair. My heart raced. Voices came from all sides, from the ceiling, from the walls, from the hallway outside. I ran to the control room. I needed to shut it down. I needed to make it stop. When I walked in, the entire panel was lit up. All the red lights were flashing. All the rooms, all the hallways, all at the same time. No, 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 I murmured, searching for the main light switch. I found it. An old, rusty circuit breaker in the corner of the room. I pulled hard. Clack. The lights went out. The monitors went dark. Silence. Only my panting breath echoed in the room. And then, very quietly, coming from the dead intercom on the wall, a whisper. You're not supposed to hear us. My stomach churned. My vision blurred. This was impossible. The system was off. No power, no sound, nothing. But the voice continued. You're not supposed to hear us, Matthias. I ran out of that room. I stumbled up the stairs, bumping my shoulder against the wall. I needed to get out. I needed air, light, reality. I ran down the ground floor hallway towards the exit, and then I heard it. Steps behind me, small, fast, wet, like soaked shoes on linoleum. I didn't look back. I kept running. My steps quickened. Closer, closer. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. Silence. My blood froze in my veins. I turned my head slowly, very slowly, looking over my shoulder. The hallway was empty, but on the ground, footprints, wet footprints, small, child's footprints, coming in my direction, stopping exactly where I had stopped. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I just stared at those impossible marks gleaming under the emergency light. And then, I heard right beside me, as if someone were whispering in my ear, "Run!" I ran. I ran to the exit, unlocked the door with trembling hands, tripped in the snow, and fell to my knees in the icy parking lot. When I looked back, all the school windows were dark. One less. On the second floor, room 14, there was a small silhouette standing at the window, observing. I didn't go back to get my things. I simply ran away. I never went back to that school again. I sent an email the next day. 2 lines. I can't continue. Personal reasons. I didn't even ask for my last payment. I didn't even want to know what happened after that. I just wanted to forget. But I couldn't, because the voice followed me. At first, I thought it was paranoia, trauma, my mind playing tricks on me after 3 nights of pure terror. I went to a psychologist. He prescribed antidepressants. He said it was post-traumatic stress, that I was projecting unresolved fears. I wanted to believe him. But 2 weeks later, I heard it again. I was driving to the market, radio off, just the sound of the engine. And then, coming from the car speakers, Matthias, short, distorted, childish. I slammed on the brakes so hard I almost hit the car in front. I looked at the dashboard, radio off, Bluetooth off, no active connections. You still listen to us? I turned off the car. I got out. I slammed the door. I stood there on the side of the road, trembling, breathing too fast. Silence. Just the cold wind of February. I walked back home. I left the car there. I couldn't get back in. But the following night, it was worse. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep. The apartment was silent. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. And then, my phone lit up. Alone. Black screen. No notifications. No calls, but I heard it coming from the loudspeaker. "Mateus Carvalho. Why? Did you run?" I threw my phone against the wall. It shattered. Pieces of glass were scattered on the floor, but even broken, the voice continued. "We just wanted you to know." "Shut up!" I yelled. "You're not real!" Silence. I collapsed to the floor, hugging my knees, trying to catch my breath. And then I heard it very softly, coming from somewhere inside my own apartment. "We are real." I spent that night awake, lights on, all of them. The next day, I moved. I left half my things behind. I went to another state, Indiana, far from Ohio, far from school, far from everything. I got a new job, security guard at a mall, day shift, no more nights, and for 2 months, silence. No voices, no static, no whispers. I started to believe it was over. Maybe I should have left that behind. But last night, I was locking up the mall, last one out. It was almost midnight, and when I passed by the food court, the intercom went off. That unmistakable sound, the soft click, the low static, and then, "Matthias, we were waiting for you." My whole body froze. "You can't run away from us." I turned around. The intercom on the wall glowed with a faint red light. "Because now, you hear us." Everywhere. And I understood. It wasn't the school. It was never the school. It was me. Something in me changed that night. When I heard my name for the first time, when the voices called me, I opened a door, and now I can't close it anymore. Because wherever I go, they go with me. And every night, they become clearer. Yesterday, I started a new job. Night shift again. Because what does it matter now? If they're with me, it doesn't matter where I am. If you work the night shift, tell me where. And if you've ever been through something similar, you already know what to do. But one thing I can guarantee you, if one day you hear your full name being called by a voice that shouldn't exist, don't answer. Because when you answer, they know, and they never let you go again. Something happened to me, and to this day, I can't understand it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I work as a night janitor at a public school in rural Ohio. My shift is from 11 at night to 6 in the morning, 5 nights a week, alone. When I accepted the job, I thought it would be easy, wiping down the hallways, checking that the doors were locked, making sure no one had broken into the building. Simple as that. After the divorce, I needed something to keep me away from home, away from the thoughts, away from the silence that hurts more than any scream. The school was built in 1974. It's one of those gray, 3-story buildings with tall windows and seemingly endless hallways. During the day, it's full of students, noise, life. At night, it's just me and the sound of the old heater groaning against the walls. I had a perfect routine. 11 o'clock. I start on the ground floor. I check all the classrooms, one by one, lock doors, turn off lights that were left on. Sometimes I find a forgotten coat, a notebook thrown on the floor, nothing out of the ordinary. Midnight, 2nd floor, the same process. Empty classrooms, desks lined up, blackboards clean or with traces of chalk from the previous day's classes. Silence. 1 in the morning, 3rd floor, east wing first. Then, if there's time left, I'll take a quick look at the west wing. But the west wing was deactivated about 5 years ago. Lack of students. The classrooms were empty. No furniture, nothing. Just dust and echo. I rarely went there. Actually, I was avoiding it, not out of fear. I don't believe in ghosts, hauntings, that crap people invent to make sense of the void. I just avoided it because I didn't need to. Nobody went in there. The doors were always locked. So why waste time? But that night, something changed. It was 2:15 in the morning when I finished my rounds on the second floor. I was going up the stairs to the third floor when I heard it. A noise. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was dragged, as if someone were moving something heavy, wood scraping on the floor. It came from the west wing. I stopped halfway up the stairs. I gripped the flashlight tighter. My heart beat a little faster, but I forced myself to think rationally. It must be the wind, or a pipe, or a window that wasn't properly closed. I stood there for maybe a whole minute, listening. The noise had stopped. Complete silence. I took a deep breath. I climbed the rest of the stairs. I turned left, toward the east wing. My safe zone. But I couldn't stop thinking about the sound. And then, I made a decision. For the first time in weeks, I decided to check out the west wing. Just to be sure, I turned right. The hallway was dark. The automatic lights had been turned off in that wing to save energy. I turned on my flashlight and started walking. My footsteps echoed. The air was colder there, denser. I arrived at the first door, room 301. I turned the doorknob. Locked. Room 302. Locked. Room 303. Locked. Then I arrived at room 304. The door was ajar. I pushed the door open slowly. The hinge groaned, that high-pitched sound that makes your teeth grind. I pointed the flashlight inside, and I swear that room was empty last week. But now what? Wallets. About 20 of them, arranged in perfect rows, as if a class had just ended, all facing the blackboard at the front of the room. My breath caught in my throat. I entered slowly. The beam of the flashlight danced on the walls. The dust on the floor was strange. There were recent marks, traces, as if someone had dragged the wallets inside a few hours ago. But that was impossible. I had the only keys to the building. Security cameras covered all the entrances. Nobody comes in here at night. Nobody but me. I walked between the rows. Some chairs were slightly out of place. One of them was still wobbling, almost imperceptibly, as if someone had just gotten up from it. I felt a chill run down my spine. That's when I saw the painting. There was something written on it. White chalk, large, bold letters. "Don't turn the lights off." My stomach churned. The chalk was still fresh. I could see the white dust on the chalkboard stand. Someone had written that. Recently. Very recently. Okay, I thought to myself. Okay, there's an explanation. There has to be. Maybe some employee came during the day. Maybe they're renovating the West Wing and nobody told me. Maybe it's a prank. Some maintenance workers like to tease the new janitor. I clung to those explanations like a man clings to a plank in the middle of the ocean. I left the room. My hand trembled as I picked up the radio clipped to my belt. I pressed the button. "Central, this is Dave. Is anyone there?" Static. Central responds. Nothing. The radio never fails. Never. I put the device away and took a deep breath. I started walking down the hallway, back to the stairs. I just wanted to get out of there. Finish my patrol. Forget about it. So, out of habit, pure stupid habit, I flipped the switch on the wall. I turned off the hallway light, and it was at that moment that I heard, "Oh, I am," coming from inside room 304. It wasn't one noise. It was several, all at the same time. Chairs being dragged. 20 chairs, all together, scraping the floor, metal against concrete. A horrible, synchronized chorus of movement. Every hair on my body stood on end. I stood there frozen in the dark, listening to that impossible sound grow, 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 and then stop. Absolute silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. My hands blindly searched for the light switch. I found it. I turned on the light. Room 304 was in front of me. The door was still ajar. I didn't want to look, but I needed to. I walked back, slowly. Each step was a battle against the instinct to run. I reached the door. I pushed it open. The wallets. All of them. They were facing the door, turned towards me. It was as if 20 invisible students had all turned around at the same time to stare at me. And on the board, the message was still there. Don't turn the lights off. But now, there was something new. Below, written in the same handwriting, fresh chalk, still falling. Too late. I ran out. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran. I ran down the hallway. I stumbled down the stairs. My radio fell to the floor, but I didn't stop to pick it up. When I got to the second floor, I stopped. I held onto the handrail and tried to catch my breath. That's not happening. That's not happening. But it was. Because when I looked up, towards the third floor, I saw the windows of the West Wing, and there were figures in them. Stopped. Observing. They weren't shadows. They were shapes. Human silhouettes. Immobile. Pressed against the window panes as if trying to break through. I counted 5, no, 6, no more. They were at all the windows in the West Wing, just watching, faced down. At me, my mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't respond. I was paralyzed in the middle of the second floor hallway, staring up at those impossible figures. Then, one of them moved her head, slowly, as if leaning to the side, curious. That woke me up. I turned and ran. I leaped down the rest of the stairs in desperate bounds. First floor. I needed to get out. I needed to leave. But when I got to the ground floor, a part of me, the stupid logical part that was still trying to find explanations, made me stop. The doors are locked until 6. Security protocol. I can't leave. Not without triggering the emergency alarm. And if I did that, I'd have to explain why. I'd have to tell what I saw, and nobody would believe me. Nobody ever believes it. I took a deep breath. I forced my mind to work. Okay. I'll stay down here, in the main hall, where there's light, where there are cameras. I just need to wait until dawn. It was 2:45 in the morning. There were 3 hours and 15 minutes left. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, facing the stairs. I held my flashlight as if it were a weapon. I stayed there, listening. The normal sounds of the school seemed amplified. The heating, the pipes, the wind outside hitting the windows. But there was something more. Steps. Light. Distant, coming from above. It wasn't just a couple of steps. It was several, walking in sync, like a whole class walking down the hallways. I closed my eyes tightly. It's not happening. It's not happening. But the footsteps continued, going down, from the third floor to the second, then from the second to the first. They were coming. I opened my eyes. The stairs were empty, but I could hear every step, every movement, getting closer. So, they stopped, right at the top of the stairs leading to the ground floor. Silence. I looked up. There was no one there, but I felt it. I felt that someone was... "Please," I whispered. "Please, leave me alone." Nothing. I stayed there for a few more minutes. Maybe 10. Maybe 20. I don't know. Time had lost its meaning. Then something inside me, call it curiosity, call it madness, made me get up. I needed to know. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I climbed the stairs slowly, flashlight in front of me, my heart in my throat. Second floor, empty hallway. Third floor, East Wing, nothing. So, I turned to the West Wing. I walked to room 304. The door was still open. I looked inside. The desks were still facing the door. But now, something was different. In each one, there was an object. Notebooks. Open. As if someone had just stopped writing. I went in. I don't know why. I went to the first desk. I looked at the notebook. The page was covered in text, the same sentence, repeated hundreds of times, handwritten, tight, desperate handwriting. He saw us. He saw us. He saw us. He saw us. I went to the next desk. Same thing. He saw us. He saw us. He saw us. All of them. In every wallet. The same message. I felt my stomach churn. I turned to leave and the door closed. Alone. I ran to her. I turned the doorknob. Locked. I started hitting. I started screaming. "Someone! Please! Get me out of here!" No one answered. That's when I heard a sound behind me. Chalk scraping against the board. I turned around. My flashlight illuminated the blackboard, and I saw it. One hand, a pale, thin hand with overly long fingers, holding a piece of chalk, writing. Slowly, letter by letter. You looked. The hand stopped. The chalk fell to the floor. And then, everything went dark. I woke up on the floor of the main hall. I don't know how I got there. I don't remember leaving room 304. I don't remember going down the stairs. My flashlight was off beside me. The radio, broken, was a few meters away. I looked at the clock on the wall. 6:10 in the morning. Sunlight streamed in through the windows. I got up slowly. Every muscle in my body ached. My throat was dry. My head throbbed. I walked to the main door. This time, it opened normally. Outside, the world was normal. Cars were passing by. Birds were singing. The school bus was already parked in the yard. I went back inside. I went upstairs. I needed to see. I needed to confirm. 3rd floor, west wing, room 304. Opened the door. Empty. Completely empty. No wallets. No notebooks. Nothing. Just dust. Peeling walls. Dirty windows. The blackboard was clean. Not a trace of chalk. I stood there, staring at that empty space, trying to figure out if I had gone mad. Then I saw, on the floor, near the corner, a piece of chalk. White. Broken in half. I grabbed it. It was cold. Really. I put it in my pocket and left. I tried to count. I spoke to my supervisor. He laughed. He said I probably fell asleep during my patrol and had a nightmare. Post-divorce stress, Dave. It happens. I went to the security room. I asked to see the recordings from the previous night. The cameras showed everything was normal. Me doing my rounds, going up the stairs, going down, but never entering the west wing. During filming, I would simply disappear for a few hours, and then he would reappear in the hall, lying on the floor. Technical problem, they said. System failure. Nobody believed him. I thought about quitting my job, looking for something else. Anything. But I need the money. I need this job. So I continued. I still work there, 5 nights a week, from 11 to 6. But now, I have rules. I never go to the west wing. Never. I never turn off the hallway lights. And I never, ever look out the 3rd floor windows when I'm outside. For months, nothing happened. I thought maybe it was over. That it was just one night. An anomaly. But last week, I was patrolling the 2nd floor. Everything was normal. Quiet. I went into room 207 to check if the windows were closed, and I saw something on the professor's desk. A piece of paper. Folded. I wasn't there when I started my shift. I'm sure of it. I approached. I unfolded the paper. It was a drawing, done in pencil. Childlike strokes, but detailed. The drawing showed a man, in a janitor's uniform, holding a flashlight. He was in a dark hallway, and behind him, there were figures, dozens of them, all with their hands outstretched, almost touching his shoulders. At the bottom of the drawing, there was a phrase written in a child's handwriting. "They follow you now." I dropped the paper. I left the room. I locked the door. I stood there in the hallway, breathing rapidly, trying to calm myself down. That's when I heard, behind me, breathing. It wasn't mine. It was slow, heavy, too close. I'll come. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but I felt it. The temperature, colder where I was standing, as if someone were right there, invisible. I started walking, fast, towards the stairs. My breath followed me. I ran downstairs, second floor, first, ground floor. I stopped. I looked back. Nothing. But when I lowered my eyes, there were footprints on the ground, wet footprints, as if someone had stepped in water. They started out of nowhere, in the middle of the hallway, and they continued on, until they reached where I was, right behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't look. I simply closed my eyes and waited for the sun to rise. I still work here. I'm still doing my rounds. But now I know. They are no longer held in the West Wing. They left, and they follow me. Every night, I can feel it. I can hear it. Sometimes I see something in the reflection of the windows. A quick movement, a shadow that shouldn't be there. Other times, I find things out of place. Chairs overturned, doors open that I was sure I had locked. And yesterday, when I arrived for my shift, I went to my locker to get my flashlight. There was something inside, a piece of chalk, and written on the inside of the cupboard door, "We know you're still here." I don't know what they want. I don't know why they chose me. All I know is, I can't stop. Because if I leave, if I abandon this place, I'm afraid they'll come with me. Something happened to me, and to this day I can't understand it. My name is David. I work as a night janitor at Ashford Middle School in rural Vermont. It's an old school built in 1952, with that smell of old wood, chalk, and mildew that never quite goes away. I do the rounds alone, from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. I've been on this shift for almost 2 years. I know every hallway, every classroom, every creak of the wooden floor. Or at least, I thought I did. On the night of March 14th, it all began. I was finishing my last round. The silence was heavy, the kind that presses on your ears. Only the distant hum of the emergency lights and the wind rustling against the window panes. I had already passed through the second floor corridor dozens of times, always empty, always the same. But that night, when I turned left past the science room, I heard it. A drag, chairs being moved. The muffled but unmistakable sound of wood scraping against the floor, coming from the end of the hallway. I stopped. My flashlight trembled in my hand. There shouldn't have been anyone there. There never has been. Hey, is anyone there? Nothing. Just the silence returning like a wave. But now it was different. Denser, as if something was waiting. I walked slowly. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet. The light from the flashlight cut through the darkness in thin slices, and then I saw a door. At the end of the corridor, to the right, where there used to be only a wall, I froze. It was made of dark, varnished wood with a frosted glass top, and on that glass, a gold metal plate, worn by time, class in session. My heart raced. I know this school better than my own home. That door, I wasn't there yesterday. I hadn't been there for 2 years. I moved closer. The air was colder near her. I could see my breath condensing. I placed my hand on the doorknob. It was freezing. And then I heard it again, from the other side of the door. Chairs, many chairs, being dragged all at once, and then absolute silence. My hand turned the doorknob before my brain could stop me. The door opened, and what I saw God. What I saw made absolutely no sense. The room was lit, not with the usual fluorescent lights at school. It was a yellowish, opaque light, as if it came from somewhere I couldn't identify. The air inside was thick, heavy. It smelled of old chalk, moldy paper, and something else, something sweet and cloying, like wilted flowers. There were rows of chairs, 6 rows, 5 chairs in each row, all facing the blackboard in front, and all occupied. No one was sitting there, but the chairs were sunken. The wooden seats were bent downwards, as if invisible bodies were pressing against them. I could see the marks, the weight, the real pressure. My breath caught in my throat. I took a step inside. The floor didn't creak. Everything was too quiet, as if the sound was absorbed by the walls. On the blackboard, there was chalk, fresh. You could see the dust still suspended in the air, glistening in the yellow light. But there was nothing written. Just thin strokes, vertical lines, as if someone had dragged their fingernails across it. I walked between the rows. My flashlight was useless there. The light in the room was sufficient, but it came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The chairs. God, the chairs. As I walked past one of them, I felt it. A warmth, not intense, but present. As if someone had just stood up. I hesitantly reached out and touched the back of a chair in the 3rd row. It was lukewarm. I recoiled immediately. My stomach churned, and that's when I saw it. At the back of the room, last row, right side, an empty chair, unlike the others, not sunken, no invisible weight, just empty, waiting. On the surface of the table, carved into the old wood, was a name. David. My name. My blood ran cold. My legs froze. I couldn't breathe properly. How? How did that get there? That room didn't exist yesterday. This school is over 70 years old, but never I studied here. I was never a student. I grew up in Boston. I moved to Vermont 3 years ago. So why was my name carved into that table? I took a step back. Another. My eyes couldn't leave that chair. Empty. Waiting. And then I heard it. A whisper. It didn't come from any specific place. It came from within, from the room. From all the chairs at once. Low. Muffled. Like voices through water. I couldn't understand the words, but I sensed the tone. Expectation. I turned around and ran to the door. It was locked. You know it had been closed. I had left it open. I'm sure of it. I pulled the doorknob hard. Nothing. I turned it. I pushed. I banged it. Open up! Open up, damn it! The room grew quieter, as if everything had stopped to observe me, and then, slowly, the door unlocked. A gentle click. I opened it so hard I almost fell backward. I ran down the hallway without looking back, my breath echoing off the walls. I went down the stairs. I crossed the lobby. I went out the front door. The cold night air hit my face like a slap. I lay there, bent over, hands on my knees, trying to breathe. I looked back, at the school. All the windows were dark. One less. On the 2nd floor, to the right, a yellowish light, coming from a room that shouldn't exist. I didn't go back that night. I called my supervisor at 5 in the morning and said I'd been feeling unwell. He complained, but accepted it. I went home. I locked the door. I closed all the curtains. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that chair, empty, with my name on it. I spent the day trying to convince myself that I had imagined it. Tiredness, stress, maybe a gas leak. I don't know. But 2 touched in that chair. I felt the warmth. I saw my name carved in the wood. That was real. The following night, I went back to work. I had to go back. I needed money. And more than that, I needed to know. The school was normal. Silent. Cold. I did my usual rounds. I avoided the second floor as much as I could. But at 3 in the morning, I couldn't take it anymore. Suffered. The hallway was empty. The emergency lights flickered faintly. I walked to where the door should have been. Nothing. Just a wall. Peeling paint. A vertical crack that's always been there. I ran my hand over the surface. Solid. Cold. Normal. I sighed. Maybe I really had imagined it. But as I turned to leave, I heard the dragging of chairs. Louder now, coming from within from the wall. I'll turn around quickly. The door was there. Class in session. My stomach sank. This time, I didn't hesitate. I opened it. The room was different, darker. The yellowish light had dimmed, almost gone out. The chairs were still occupied, sunk in, warm, pressed down by something invisible. But now there was something on the blackboard. Words, written in white chalk, in an irregular, childlike handwriting. "You're late, David." My mouth went dry. My knees almost gave way. Who is doing this? No answer. Just thick silence. I walked over to the blackboard. My hand trembled as I touched the chalk. It was fresh, newly written on. I turned to the room. To the empty yet occupied chairs. "What do you want from me?" The air changed. It became heavier, colder, and then a sound, a collective sigh, 30 breaths at once, coming from 30 mouths I couldn't see. I backed up to the wall. My flashlight fell to the ground and went out. In near total darkness, illuminated only by the dying light of the room, I saw the chairs began to move, not much, just centimeters, rotating, slowly. All at the same time, turning to me, 30 chairs occupied by nothing, 30 invisible presences, all watching me, and in the back, the empty chair, with my name on it, still waiting. I ran. I stumbled. I got up. The door was open this time, but I felt something behind me. Not a sound, not a touch, just the certainty that something was approaching. I left. The door slammed shut behind me. I ran downstairs. I didn't stop until I was outside. In the parking lot, I took out my cell phone. I looked up information about the school, history, old records, and I found it. A newspaper article from 1959. Small headline, buried in the archives of the municipal library. Entire class disappears during lesson at Ashford Middle School. 30 students. One teacher. They entered the classroom one morning in March. They were never seen again. The room was sealed off. According to the article, it was removed during a renovation in 1962. But no floor plan showed where it was located, except that she was still there, waiting. And there was one last line in the article, a footnote. One of the students, David Marlowe, was absent that day due to a medical appointment. He was the only survivor. My last name is Marlowe. My grandfather. His name was David. I called my mother at 4 in the morning. She answered, startled, thinking something had happened. And it had. Mom. Grandpa David. Did he study in Vermont? Silence on the other end. Too long. Why are you asking that now, David? Just answer, please. She sighed. He did go to school, yes. Ashford Middle School. But he never liked to talk about it. He said something bad had happened. He lost friends. His whole class. She couldn't finish. I already knew. My grandfather died when I was 12. He never talked much about his childhood. He always seemed haunted by something. And now I knew what it was. He had escaped. That day. By sheer luck, he wasn't in the room. But the room never forgot. And now she wanted what was rightfully hers. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I looked at the school. The light on the second floor was still on. I could leave, never come back, quit my job, leave Vermont. But I knew. You knew, which wouldn't help. That room would find me, wherever I went. Because I had a debt of blood, of name, of destiny. I entered the school for the last time. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step seemed heavier than the last. The second floor hallway was completely dark now, except for the light that leaked from under that impossible door. When I got in front of her, I didn't need to open the door. The door opened by itself. The room was full now, not empty, not with invisible presences. I could see them. 30 children. Seated in chairs, old uniforms from the 1950s, pale faces, deep-set eyes, looking straight ahead. At the blackboard, none of them were moving, none of them were breathing, but they were there. And in the back, the empty chair, with my name on it, I took a step inside. The door closed behind me. This time, I didn't try to run away. I walked between the rows. The children didn't turn their heads, but I felt their eyes following me. 20, 30 pairs of dead eyes, trapped there for decades, waiting. I reached the chair. My name was there, carved deep into the wood, as if it had always been there. "I'm not part of this," I whispered. "I wasn't there that day." From the blackboard, a voice, not loud, not frightening, just tired, "But you should be." I turned around. There was a woman at the front of the room, dark dress, hair tied up. The teacher. She looked at me with empty eyes. David Marlowe never came. The roll call was incomplete. The class could never finish. My grandfather. It wasn't his fault. And it's not your fault that you carry his name. But the name should be here. She pointed to the chair. "Sit down, David. Finish the call. Let us rest." I looked at the children, at their faces frozen in time, trapped, waiting for decades. If I sat down, what would happen to me? My hand touched the back of the chair. It was cold now, not warm like the others, because I was waiting for warmth, for life, for me. I closed my eyes, and I sat down. The cold enveloped me immediately. It rose up my legs, my chest, my neck, like icy water filling my lungs. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The children all turned their heads towards me at the same time, and they smiled. The teacher wrote something on the board, a line, the last name, present. The light went out. I woke up in the parking lot. Dawn was breaking. My car was parked beside me, keys in hand. I don't remember how I left school. I don't remember walking. I got into the car. I looked at the second floor. No light. No door. I quit my job that morning. I moved 2 weeks later. I went back to Boston. I tried to move on. But every night, when I close my eyes, I'm still in that room, seated, waiting. And sometimes, I feel the weight of being trapped, of never having truly left. Maybe I'm still there. Perhaps we never leave places that choose us. If you work the night shift, tell me where. And if you've ever been through something similar, you already know what to do.